Hi, welcome back to the channel. This is the Intimacy Liberation Army, where we teach you how to date more, date better. I'm Duke Delaet. I'm a dating coach for the Intimacy Liberation Army, and today we're talking about how to get over the fear of meeting new people. Let's jump into it. I was out tonight. It's cold as fuck. It's like 39 degrees or something. In California, that's cold as fuck. I get people from the East Coast. They're like, you guys don't know what cold is. You're right, we don't, but it's still cold. So nobody's out, right? There's a bunch of people at the bars, but like it's so cold, like nobody wants to hang out outside, and we have a lot of outdoor bar. Anyways, so nobody's out, and so I'm talking to kind of the same people that I talk to on a regular basis, and I ran into this one girl, and she had just gotten out of a relationship. She's really sad that she can't hold love, she can't keep love, and whatever. So she's talking to me about all this stuff, and I'm looking around over the groups of people that are there, and I'm like, yeah, like we're all kind of in the same boat. Like post COVID, the socialization, the adventure's not the greatest. Like everybody's just kind of looking for how the how their lives could be better. They're looking for some sort of stimulation without having to do the same old shit over and over and over again. So I was thinking about the subject today was how to meet new people. It came up on my Reddit search and everything, and I was like, well, meeting new people is not all that hard. It's choosing who to ally with, who to go have adventures with, how to create rapport, create the stories that last, that you tell each other for years. Really dive in, make good friends, make hot romantic connections. Like summer's coming up, you're gonna have this time where you remember all the cool adventures you went on. So like, how am I gonna approach this? So here's what I think. I think that very much like progressive iteration, which is my hardcore how to be calibrating theory that I weave through all of these lessons. You have to be able to push yourself out of your comfort zone just long enough, just a step or two outside of your comfort zone, to experience something new. You're like in a discovery sort of mindset, but you don't want to go too far and get stimulated so much that you end up altering the course of your life in a bad way, right? So very often, a lot of the guys who come to me as clients, and a lot of the girls who kind of circle around me and enjoy the philosophies of life that I talk about, they like a sense or a semblance of control. And I've always felt that like control is a fear-based illusion. I got that from Stefan Hemon, one of my old coaches back in 2009 or something. Yeah, control is a fear-based illusion. Like if you think that you can grasp onto control and actually do something in the world with some semblance of like you can affect what goes on, you're dumb. Like the world is so much bigger than us. The universe is so much bigger than us. The forces are so much bigger than us, and it's very difficult to really make a dent over time. However, you can kind of the analogy is kind of like the water's moving, and if you kind of stand in its way long enough, it'll alter its course a little bit to go around you. And if you can alter the course a bit, then it'll have reverberating changes down, cut new holes, make a new fork of the river, that kind of thing. You can make change. You can effect transformation. You can create something new where there wasn't anything before. But it's very difficult to control the outcome of it, especially if you don't know what it is, right? Like if you're out there discovering and exploring, it's very difficult to control the outcome to be a certain way because you don't have any reference to know what that certain way is. So I was thinking a lot about fear. I was thinking about, I wrote a whole book on approaching new people. It's called Kick Fear in the Dick. It's on Amazon. But the majority of that book and the majority of what I've been teaching over the years for getting over fear is really self-management. It's really dealing with your own limiting beliefs and the behaviors that are attached to them. So you have these trauma responses, or you have these Cialdini click whir responses that when you get a certain level of stimulus, you like, oh, I'm just gonna do this because I've done this the whole time. I learned this in childhood or whatever. For instance, I was talking to my girlfriend today, and she woke up and she was like super mad, and she was just banging around the house like angry at everything, and she had a very short fuse, right? And as a relationship haver, I've learned that her short fuse has nothing to do with me generally. I used to take it on as, it's my responsibility to fix this problem, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the cause of it or whatever. And it turns out that most of the time she's pissed off. It has nothing to do with who I am, even though I tried to take ownership of it for many, many years. And but it was kind of a trauma response, when I was younger. Whenever my mom would be super stressed out and she'd be flipping out and just pissed off at everything, I always thought it was my fault. And in a way, I got blamed for a lot of things that weren't mine, and so I took that responsibility on. And so many years later, the trauma response still comes up. I still feel it in my body. I still like, how do I fix this? How do I make this stop? Like, I get that feeling, right? But I've learned to self-regulate. I've learned to be like, okay, that feeling's there, but it's lying to me, so I don't need to respond to it. But at the same time, I also need to be able to set boundaries for myself and be like, hey, there's a certain level at which you can be angry or whatever, but don't throw these things at me if they're not mine. So you got to be able to set boundaries too on that stuff. But me trying to control any aspect of this thing is really only, it's horseshit. Like I can't really control the external environment. I can control how I'm responding to it. In which case, by controlling how I respond to it, then I control how things unfold, because I'm not adding fuel to the fire, or I'm not, enabling things if I don't want to be there to enable them. So the whole book on fear was written about how to do self-regulation before I knew what self-regulation was. I wrote that book a long time ago. And it was really, I focused a lot on presence, and I focused a lot on getting yourself to do things that you didn't want to do because the good growth-oriented side of yourself knew that they were the right things to do. And so in order to maintain integrity with yourself and create self-esteem, you want to do what you said you're going to do, and then carry that forward. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So fear is really mitigated by you regulating you. And when for any of this fear stuff, like fear of approaching new women, fear of meeting new people, fear of going out in public, fear of all that, whatever, there are many ways to do it. But I was talking about, I don't know if I talked about it. No, this is in the course. So I filmed a video on the course, in the Dateable course, on this. So I'll summarize it here because I haven't said this on YouTube yet. So there's a couple of ways in modern psychology that are super evidence-based and super proven that lets you get over phobias, right? So let's say you have a fear of spiders, right? Well, you'd walk into the little spider fear remove clinic, and you say, hey, I'd like to get over my fear of spiders, please. And then the nurse would come up to you and say, hey, yeah, sign this waiver, and you got like 8 hours? And you're like, sure, I have 8 hours. We can take it right now then. So you sit in the waiting room, and then you're like, okay, so how's this work? And they say, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to progressively desensitize you to your fear of spiders. And you're like, that doesn't sound great. And you're like, well, you signed the waiver, so fuck it, you're here. And so they'll sit you in the chair, and they'll say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid of spiders are you? And you're like, 11.2. And they'll say, okay, well, for the sake of the thing, we're going to say 10 because it was a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm like, okay, cool. So let me show you a picture of this tarantula. And they show you this picture, and it's this hairy blue tarantula. and you're like, ah, you flip out, right? Well, after a while, your nervous system is going to calm the fuck down because it can't really run at red line for too long. So it'll just calm down. And then you'll have acclimated or you've desensitized yourself to the picture of the spider that was sitting in front of you. And then what they'll do is they'll like, okay, look, this is my fictional spider phobia removal place. I don't have any, I can't point you to a place if you're scared of spiders. Sorry, man. But they'll be like, I'm going to open this door over here, look through the door, and notice that there's a terrarium in there. And there's the same spider that we just showed you the picture of. It's a tarantula, technically not a spider, but whatever. He's in there. His name's Harry, because he has little spider hairs, so we call him Harry. And you can see him through the door, and he's in the terrarium, and he's about this big, and you could probably walk in your face like this. And you're like, that's not particularly comfortable. Well, you'll sit there for a little while, and then your nervous system will calm down, and then you'll be acclimated to the fact that Harry's 15 feet away in another room. So then they move you closer, and they move you into the room. So now you're in the room, but he's behind glass. And so you sit there for a while, and your nervous system calms down. And then they take the spider out, and they put him on the table with the little harness and spider trainer guy. And lo and behold, you get used to him being on the table in front of you. And then you wait around until your nervous system calms down, and then the spider trainer comes and he explains how to handle the spider, and he explains what they do when they attack and when they're docile, and see, he likes you, or whatever. So then they end up 8 hours later with you and a tarantula on your hand, fully acclimated to the fact that 8 hours ago you couldn't stand the thought or the picture of the spider, but now you're okay holding him in the hand. And they progressively desensitize you. This is what we do in most of my workshops. So we'll go and we'll start very small. We'll have you say, like, if you're afraid of meeting new people, then you go walk through a crowded area, you hold eye contact with people as you walk by. And then if they hold eye contact with you, then you acknowledge them, and then you say, oh, hi, are you having a good day, man, or whatever. And then you'll stop people, ask for the time, you'll ask where the Starbucks is, you'll do stuff like that, right? And then as you kind of get warmed up, you acclimated to it, then you start doing other things, like trying to get them to stop and talk to you, and then trying to get them to introduce themselves, and then trying to get them to tell you about themselves and all this other stuff. It progressively goes forward, and by the end of day one on our workshops, you'll go out, you'll be fully scared of talking to girls, and then you come to the workshop, and then by day one you'll talk to 80 different girls, and had reasonably pleasant conversations with them about things that are deeper than like, oh, what you're doing today. And going through that process kind of removes that fear. But just because you're progressively desensitized to the certain thing doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to stay that way. So we have to do things to get you fully invested in the process, so that you get so many reference experiences that you kind of tip the balance of like, oh, my whole life nobody wanted to talk to me, and now I've talked to 80, 100, 180 people, and I've only got rejected like 8, 9 times out of this whole thing, and I had pleasant conversations with the rest of them. Now what? Now how do we push forward? How do we go create sexual tension? How do we show intent? How do we show leadership? How do we show dominance? How do we lead and entertain in a conversation? All that stuff can happen after the fear leaves, and the way that you get over the fear is just baby stepping out. My first time trying to get over fear of people, I started in nightclubs. My mentors, Nick Coe and Owen Cook from Real Social Dynamics, they're the first guys that I hired to take me out and get me over fear of being in public places. And they had me go to bars and start talking to random people. Back then they had a bunch of different rules, and we still do this stuff in our workshops, but less so now because we're not trying to parrot lines and stuff anymore. But they had a bunch of rules, like if you walk into a place, the first table on the left you talk to, and you just say hi. You ask them what they're celebrating. You ask them what they're doing tonight. You ask them where they've been earlier. You ask them what they're drinking. You cheers people, whatever. With the Art of Charm guys, they did the cheers exercises where they would just run around and take a drink and just cheer everybody, stuff like that. doesn't really move your social skills forward as a whole. But what it does do is it removes the pain in the ass that it is to start from zero, object at rest, tending to stay at rest, and go into a place where you're more jovial, you have more access to the social skills that are, ingrained in you as a human. So if you make it a big deal, like this is kind of what I figured out over the years teaching this stuff. If you make it a big deal, then it is a big deal. If you make light of it, then it generally is light. Like if you don't assign a whole bunch of weird meaning to going out and meeting new people, then you're not all worried about the fact that you're going out and meeting new people. If you're afraid of judgment, you're afraid of rejection, you're afraid of social reprisal, you're afraid of all this other stuff, you're just kind of assigning things to this event, right? Like you walk into the club and you say hi to random people. Some people like you, some people don't. Some people say hi to you, some people don't. Some people respond and want to have a conversation. Some people want you to go fuck yourself. It just happens. It's just kind of how life works. If you go out on the road, you start driving. Some people are going to be good drivers. Some people are going to be bad drivers. Some people are going to cut you off. Some people are going to be too slow. Some people are going to not give a fuck and just care about themselves in traffic and cut a whole bunch of people off as they're trying to weave through. Some people are going to be on their phones not paying attention, and you just kind of take it all how it comes, and you kind of got to navigate the world while everybody else is doing their own thing. You don't have a bunch of anxiety about driving, and it doesn't keep you off the road because there are some assholes on the road, right? It just doesn't happen that way. You just acclimate to it, and you adapt to what's going on in the environment. That's kind of how I look at going out and meeting new people. If you do have a particular goal, and like I want to go find somebody to be sexually intimate with, or I want to have a new girlfriend, or whatever it is, then yeah, the fear of loss of that goal, and the insecurities that come up around it, and then validating those insecurities, that can be a monumental thing to overcome. But in reality, you're just you, and there's a whole bunch of other people in the same space being social. And some people are better than others. Some people are good conversationalists. Some people are really good friends. Some people are trustworthy. Some people are snakes. It is what it is. And so I met this guy tonight. He was I went from that one bar to the other one. One of my best friends, Kelly, and they had brought this dude from another bar, and he was one of these guys that he's one of these, like, I've traveled all over the world and taken every type of plant medicine available, and you guys should really do mushrooms. It'll open your mind. Like, he's one of these guys, but he's an excellent talker, really good communicator, really good at looking genuine. I don't know him well enough to know if he was telling the truth or not, but I have no reason to think he's a liar. So he was having great conversation. I was having great conversation with him. We were telling stories. The girls were loving him. He's like a breath of fresh air into their life because they're used to the same dudes at the bars all the time. And he continued to keep talking and keep relating his stories, and then he did a lot of active listening and let the girls talk and kind of prove themselves and qualify. And I'm just watching the whole thing, and then I'm engaging. We talked about scotch and shit and music, and it was great. And he had no problems meeting new people, even though he was being really open and vulnerable and talking a lot about all the bullshit that was going on in his life and stuff. But he found a good audience, and they rested on good ears, or it fell on good ears, and he was able to make a connection with me and these two girls I was with. And so we're going to go see a show on Wednesday, and we're all going to be open to the next level of adventure, right? Maybe we'll all end up in the desert doing shrooms together or something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he didn't really assign much meaning to it. And I don't either when I go out. And I think it has to do with the level of experience we both have with social situations. Like, he's been all over the world doing all sorts of crazy drugs with a bunch of people. And I've been all over the world running workshops on socialization for fucking 10, 12 years in all these different environments with a bunch of people. And so there's an ease about both of us that we can kind of just carry the thing. And there's a synergy there too. I really think it has something to do with being able to self-regulate your trauma responses against your expectations and against your the meaning that you're assigning to the social event. Like, one of the first pieces of advice I got about how to not be creepy with women was talk to her as if you're hanging out, drinking beers with your friends, and talking to them. And while I don't know if that's necessarily the best case for creating sexual vibe and tension and all the other stuff that we teach, it's really good for coming across as a normal, genuine human being, because with your friends where you're comfortable, that's when you're a normal, genuine human being. So it makes sense that if you go out and you just start treating people like your friends, that some of them will respond that way, and then give you those kind of positive reference experiences that can make it seem easier for when you go out again and again and again, as you kind of progressively iterate through getting over the fear and then being more effective in those social environments. So yeah, so we covered progressive iteration with progressive desensitization of fear. The fear really comes from your behavioral responses that you attach to the meaning that you have in the environment, and that you can sort of go out and practice enough to get enough experience that it doesn't hold you back from behaving how you want to behave, meeting the people you want to meet. And so, as far as getting over the fear of meeting new people, I think that you should definitely just go out and practice at whatever level you're at, and then constantly get better and iterate and iterate and iterate. And not only will you becoming better skill wise, but you'll also get better at managing your responses to the fear that were there when you started. I think that's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm Duke, and this is the Intimacy Liberation Army channel. We're going to talk about being more attractive to women and active listening, which is also really good as far as getting other people to like you. That's these videos right here. Other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow, because we do this every damn day. Until then, stay awesome.